People always say that, drinking lots of water is good for you, that you need to drink more and it will hydrate you and it has all of these benefits. People will also tell you that you need to ingest less salt. It's dangerous for you. It's this poison. And for my whole life, I believe that the more water I drank, the better off I'd be. I made it a point to drink water constantly, as much as I could. It was even in my morning routine to, start off the day by drinking 1.5 liters of water, which is around 0.4 gallons of water, because it's important that you stay hydrated and you start off the day by drinking a lot of water, even if you're not thirsty. The problem here is that when you get this advice from people, nobody ever takes into consideration how your diet looked like, what's your activity levels, how much you sweat. And if you just blindly follow this advice to drink more water, ingest less salt, and you don't think about any type of electrolyte balances, this might be very dangerous advice for you, especially if you're starting or you're on the ketogenic diet. Because when I started the ketogenic diet the first time, this mindset persisted. I hadn't really done my research back then, so I drank excessive amounts of water and I tried to keep my salt intake at a minimum. This was of course setting me up for just total disaster. I noticed that immediately. After just 1 week, I felt terrible on the ketogenic diet. I got cramps for the first time in my life. I felt fatigued. I couldn't really work out. I had low energy. It felt like my muscles and my mind weren't really connecting that well. It was very weird, and I knew that I was doing something wrong, but I just couldn't figure out what it was. And it wasn't until I figured out how to actually hydrate yourself, how important salt, electrolytes are for your hydration, when I started feeling better and eventually started thriving. My name is Felix, and today I want to tell you about the mistakes that I've done of drinking too much water and consuming too little salt and electrolytes, and how this really gave me a lot of trouble. And the things I will be discussing in this video are of a lot greater importance if you're actually considering or you're getting on the ketogenic diet, carnivore diet, whatever. You're cutting out all of the carbohydrates and the processed foods, which will actually make your body retain a lot more water, a lot more salt in your system. Because if you're eating the standard Western diet or something like that, you're probably getting enough salt, and the carbohydrates will help you retain the sodium and the water pretty well and make you hold on to the electrolytes a lot better. So first, let's talk about the importance of salt, sodium chloride, and electrolytes, especially when you are on a ketogenic diet. So what I personally notice is that when I have reduced the water that I'm drinking and I've increased the amount of salt or sodium chloride that I'm taking, I actually perform and I feel a lot better. And I actually had this mistake last week. Last week I was recording quite a lot of videos and somehow I just automatically drank a lot more water than I normally do. For about 2 days I was feeling kind of tired. I was going to the gym. I was somehow drinking a lot more water than I normally did, and I was just feeling fatigued. I wasn't feeling good, and I couldn't really, at the moment I couldn't find out what was really the reason, because I was still ingesting quite a lot of salt. The thing was that I was actually drinking too much water. Immediately it kind of clicked in my head, okay, I'm having these symptoms, what could it be? Oh, this sounds familiar. And what I did was I stopped drinking as much water, I increased my sodium intake even more, and immediately I felt better. There's a very good reason that it's very common for bodybuilders or other athletes to, in their pre-workouts, put quite a lot of salt in, because especially before a workout or before you're about to sweat a lot, if you ingest some salt, your blood flow will be a lot better, and you will overall have a lot more energy, and your cells will be able to communicate a lot better. And in the gym, the feeling when you get the pump, that will be a lot better when you actually ingest salt before. And personally, in the last weeks, I've been experimenting with actually eating a pre-workout meal, because before I always do my workouts in a fasted state because that's how I feel the best. But I've actually started to experiment with eating 4 to 5 eggs before my workouts, whatever I do, and I put a lot of salt in there. So I put an excessive amount of salt in there. I have to say, I've never felt better. Eating a lot of salt before a workout makes a really big difference. And you can for yourself try this out next time you're about to work out. If you ingest some salt before, it might really make a big impact. And there are lots of studies on this. Athletes ingesting more salt before the workouts will perform better. I will link them in the description below, because this will not only apply to athletes, it will apply to your day-to-day life. So now the question becomes, how much water should you really drink? Because what I've heard is that people are telling me the more water you drink, the better. And this is just completely false. Yes, it's good to drink water. I also drink water. Yeah, you will die if you don't drink water. The more is not better. You need to drink enough water. And it's really not rocket science. If you don't have some sort of medical problem, you should drink when you're thirsty. That's it. That's the hack. Drink when you're thirsty, but if you're not feeling thirsty, you shouldn't force yourself to drink anything. That's what I do today. I only drink when I'm thirsty. I ingest a lot of salt and I feel really good. So I'm not going to tell you how much water you should drink per day because it's so dependent on your activity levels, where you live, how much you sweat. And this is really a personal thing that you need to experiment with yourself. You need to find out what works best for you. But the thing I want you to take from this video is the point that you can't drink too much water. The more water is not better. It's the same thing with food. The more food you eat is necessarily not better. Like eventually you will just become fat from it. With water it's the same thing. Eventually you will just, and it's the same thing with water. Eventually you will just deplete your electrolytes and there is really no benefit from just getting more and more water. And when it comes to how much water you should be drinking or any diet, there's really no right or wrong answer. There's only what works for you and what does not work for you. So it doesn't matter what your doctor or any social media influencer tells you to do, and this is the right way, this is what you should do. You need to go out and find out for yourself. Experiment with yourself. What works for you, what does not. That's the only way to find out what really works for you. And personally, I like to experiment with myself. So I know that for my lifestyle, I feel the absolute best when I actually ingest a lot of salt. But I'm also pretty active, I sweat a lot, and the only things I eat is meat and eggs without any carbs or processed foods. So naturally, I will need more. Alright, but that's it for today. I hope you found value in this video, and I really appreciate a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content like this, I post every single day. As always, eat meat, take care, and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.